another episode. I can happily cheer. I am no longer, what's the opposite of undefeated? Like, is there one word to describe undefeated, but the opposite? Like where you haven't won? No? No way to describe that?
The goose egg.
Anti-goose egg. Basically, I've won my first game of the season in our league. So super excited. This is the first time we get to record where the podcast has swept. We've all won our matchups. This is the first time I get to record where I've swept my 2 leagues. This is not the first time yet that my favorite team and my fantasy team won. So we're still waiting for that first. But a lot to unpack. I am excited. I'm Sweetcard. That's Shashot. That is Shovit. Congrats. We all won our fantasy matchups this week. Holy shit. First time all year that's happened.
Yep. And me and Shisho are have the same record. I'm coming for that 5th spot, man. You can have the 6th. I want the 5th.
Yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see. You just make the playoffs first, and then we'll talk.
Yeah, we'll see if you guys make the playoffs, man. There's a lot riding on my performance for you guys to make the playoffs. So, I mean, more so than you guys needing to win your matchups, I need to win my matchups so the guys in front of you guys start losing. So,
Who do you play this week, Sweetcard, real quick?
I know I play Ishan the week after, and then
that doesn't matter. And what else is there?
Hold on. Let me just find it real quick. I'm gonna find it real quick.
It's basically Amin, Shovit, me, and Riaz fighting for the last spots.
Yeah, then it kind of doesn't matter because I play
too.
Yeah, I play I used this
Sean
week.
Not in that mix anymore?
I beat Sean. I beat Sean, so we're good.
Sean.
I play Ayush, and then I play Ishan, and then I play Sundis. So it's the top 3 seeds.
Oh, okay,
so none of those matter? Okay, sick. But it's fine. I beat the top 3 seeds 3 weeks in a row. Who's got the best team in the league? You know, some people
I was thinking about this. There needs to be like another playoff for like the last 4 people, so there's like a push to try to continue, and maybe you do like another pot of just $5 extra.
Dude, you read my mind.
That's literally what a consolation ladder is.
The minute the consolation bracket comes out, I was already like, hey, whoever's in this, let's do another $25 buy-in. Winner gets the pot. So I've been ready for this, man. I need some incentive in this league. It's been really, really depressing, but very, very long-winded. We'll talk all about that along with everything that happened this past Sunday. Let's kick things off with water polo talk. Real quick, guys, happy 10-year anniversary to the butt fumble. 10 years ago today, Mark Sanchez and the infamous butt fumble took place. Crazy the trajectory of that guy, right? Quarterback took his team to the semifinals a couple of times, butt fumbled, laughing stock, and now he is a broadcaster, commentator, color commentator.
He's pretty good.
He's really not bad. I feel like I see a lot of shit he gets on Twitter, but I actually enjoy his commentary a lot.
The thing is, like, you can't get made fun of if you own up to it, and he just owns up to it every time. So it's like people like try to be like, ha ha, and he's just like, yeah, it sucked. It was embarrassing, and people they lose. You take their power away.
Yeah. That's the best way. When somebody makes fun of you, you also make fun of yourself. It's a win-win. That's what I love about Dan Orlovsky. He's one of the worst quarterbacks to ever play. Anytime somebody brings up him running in the back of the end zone, he owns up to it, you know? And I think that's when you're at your best, not when you're like, oh, well, the pressure was there and making up all these excuses. Nobody wants to hear that. You suck. So happy 10-year anniversary, butt fumble. Another quarterback that is on the same team of the butt fumbler that maybe needs to get benched, Zach Wilson. Finally, first time all year, Robert Saleh has not convincingly said Zach Wilson is the starting quarterback. So I think this is what all NFL fans have been waiting for. I know Wilson is still the long-term outlook, but for a team that is positioned with their defense to actually be competitive now, Joe Flacco might be the best bet. So we'll see who he officially announces as a starter, but it doesn't look good for Zach.
It doesn't, because like I've watched Aaron Rodgers for like 20 years or whatever now, and I've hated him, but it's a different kind of hate, right? It's a hate out of like respect. But I'm looking at this kid and he just like screams like, he's so hateable. He's like, after the press conference when he lost the game, they were like, do you like basically own up to any of this shitty performance on offense? And he said, no. I'm like, bro, who do you think you are? Like a veteran for 15 years with 2 Super Bowl championships? Like, bro, like at least look at Josh Allen. Josh Allen over there is like, yeah, it's my fault. After every game, he's like, my fault. I got to do better. And you have this kid who's proven nothing of anything related to Josh Allen. And he's like, no, I don't need to own up to anything. I'm like, dude, everybody hates you now.
Yeah, you need to have some accountability for sure. But it may be Mike White, right? It may not be Joe Flacco that gets a start. So
I mean, they're trying to win though. Like they're not trying to rebuild. They're like there's winning possibilities happening. I would go ahead and start Joe Flacco, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I think Flacco makes the most sense for win now because Mike White's like as much of a wild card, if not more, than Zach Wilson, right? So you could get Zach Wilson like light. You could get a great value version of Zach Wilson. So just imagine how bad that could look. So I think at this point, I would trust Joe Flacco if you're trying to win this year and then just figure the rest of the shit out afterwards.
I just remember that game last year with against the Bengals, and I think I put money on the Bengals. I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a sure win." And Mike White comes in, and I think Elijah Moore had a couple touchdowns that game too. So, yeah, I still, he's got some potential.
Maybe.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
The Washington Commanders, who are slowly creeping at 6-5 now, have officially activated Chase Young. Chase Young is the Joey Bosa, the Nick Bosa, the TJ Watt to that defense. So I think it's really, really important to have that guy on the field. The whole defense of the Commanders being such a shit show and so bad the last couple of years when they were supposed to be good started with their lack of pass rush, right? Started with Chase Young getting hurt. So now that he's back, I'm expecting a little bit of shift in this defense that has slowly started to pick things up. That offense is doing just enough. And again, they're hanging around at 6-5 in a really, really tough division. So they'll be happy to get the defensive playmaker back. The Denver Broncos wave Melvin Gordon goodbye. That was really, really interesting. I don't know why. It's not like they had such heavy depth at the running back position. I mean, Javonte out for season. Chase Edmonds hurt. You literally picked up Latavius Murray off the street, and he's producing. But now he's your only running back. He's your only running back.
Boone comes back next week, so there's probably like
practice squad guy.
Go ahead.
Validity of this, but I heard that Melvin Gordon was playing songs by The Future at the locker room, and Russell Wilson was like, "Nah, that's not gonna."
Dude, that's so funny. It started off as a joke, and then it just caught fire all over the internet. And now we have people that are like actually considering it, but no, it's not true. It's not true. It would be really funny though. It would be really funny.
And real quickly, it is week 11 that has officially transpired. So I think it's appropriate that every week we do a quick top 5 draft pick check because that's going to be very, very important. Right now, rounding out the 5, you have Houston Texans projected to draft number 1, Carolina Panthers at 2, the Chicago Bears, man, with all that cap space, all that ability to improve at number 3, the Vegas Raiders at 4, and Seattle at number 5, getting that pick from Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. So right now, Seattle winning the division and still projected to pick in the top 5. What a great place to be. And a lot of money that they did not drop on a horrible quarterback. So really good situation to be in if you're Seattle. That's it, guys, for Water Cooler Talk. Let's jump into the rundown. Speaking of the Bears, I will kick things off. Chicago traveled to Atlanta to take on the Falcons this week. 3-point spread, which pushed Atlanta wins at home 27-24 final over 49 cashes. Chicago now 3-8, Atlanta 5-6. Pretty one-sided affair in terms of the way points were scored and yards were had. Neither team threw the football well at all. Justin Fields, 153 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Mariota, 131 yards passing, 1 touchdown, no interception. But both teams did what they do. They ran the ball really, really well. The Bears, 41 total carries, 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. Atlanta, 33 carries, 149 and a score on the ground. Fields, not amazing through the air, but it does not matter. 18 carries, 85 yards and a touchdown on the ground. David Montgomery, owners rejoice. Shishot, 17 for 67 and a touchdown. 3 catches for 54 yards for old Monty. That is freaking amazing. Darnell Mooney caught the only touchdown from Fields, 4 for 29 and a touchdown. Obviously on the Falcons side, Mariota, really inefficient, 13 carries, only 25 yards, but also like most running quarterbacks, he got into the end zone. Tyler Algier, 8 carries, 55 yards, 1 catch, 9 yards. Cordero Patterson, man, 10 carries, 52 yards, 2 catches, 7 yards, and a kick return for a touchdown, which broke the all-time record for most kick returns for a touchdown. The dude is a monster. Last thing I want to note, Justin Fields did hurt his shoulder. So for Fantasy Outlook, that is definitely something to monitor. I think, he has been such a success for fantasy. He's a guy that you plug and play. You don't even worry about him on a week-to-week basis anymore. And this is huge. This is huge for playoff push. So that is definitely something to monitor. And then Shishot, on the other side, Kyle Pitts got hurt as well. I don't know what the severity of his injury was. Is he out for season?
Yeah, he should be. He's pretty much, he requires surgery for his MCL tear. They could try to make him come back earlier, but what's the point, right? Like,
for what?
For what?
To just get cardio in and not catch a single
Exactly. They need to think long term, and he needs to be shut down. I would not worry about him being on your fantasy roster moving forward.
Yeah, big offensive explosion. Both teams running the ball really, really well. But again, Justin Fields' fantasy value, definitely something to monitor with that injury. Shoulder on, I believe, maybe, was it his throwing? I don't know if it's throwing shoulder or non-throwing
Left shoulder.
Left shoulder. So non-throwing shoulder is a little bit better, but you have to remember this guy runs. And this game, all like 75 or 80% of his rushing yards came in the first half. So I think the minute he felt some sort of a tweak or something in that shoulder, all of a sudden he was way more cognizant of running the football. And that's where like 90% of Fields' fantasy value is. So definitely something to monitor.
Yeah, I'm a little optimistic because it is just day to day right now. But yeah, you bring up a good point. If he's playing scared, then it's terrible for fantasy.
Yeah. If he's got to throw 25 times, then you're not going to get the same fantasy points.
Exactly.
All right. The NFL took away what could have been one of the greatest viewing spectacles of our lifetime, and they put this Browns at Bills game in Detroit indoors where there's no snow to be appreciative of. Cleveland did they hit the over?
Yeah, no. Over 49.5. Yep.
Oh, that's right. Okay, 49.5. Cleveland was plus 10. So all things Gucci there. Cleveland is now 3-7. Buffalo is now 7-3. Well, what happened this game? There was a pretty off day for the passing attack for the Bills. Off day for Diggs early. He even had to cry on his offensive coordinator or head coach's shoulder, and he's just a crybaby, man. I want to love him so much, but these diva receivers, like, just give me a Devonta Adams where nobody really just stoic.
You have the best non-crying receiving duo in the league. Devonta Adams and DeAndre Hopkins literally. Like, they play on two of the shittiest, most frustrating teams, and you never see. I mean, I guess Adams did push a cameraman, so I know he's frustrated, but yeah, you never see either of those guys bitch during the game. It's the wildest thing.
Yeah, there's like tiers to bitching, and like the types that what you bitch about, and like that kind of stuff. Like, Diggs, what are you doing, man? It's such a baby. Anyways, it was an off day for him early, but all it took was 8 yards of separation for that first touchdown catch, and it kind of salvaged his day. You don't talk about Diggs getting salvaged, but that was one of the early game salvage moments. The Bills went with a run-first approach. Allen only threw it 27 times. He completed 18 of those passes for 197 yards and 1 touchdown. He only ran the ball 3 times for 7 yards, which, he was my breakout player of the week or whatever, just because of how embarrassing the game before was. But this game was arguably even more embarrassing. I don't know if people watched this game as much as I did, but he did not do well. Now he's got 12 quarters of below average football play. It's just been, he's just been rallying around his defense to kind of make things happen here and there. It just does not look like, what Patrick Mahomes would look like. And that's the kind of comparison we're trying to use for him. So we need to see some better play from Josh Allen where you don't, because you're going to play other teams that are not the Browns here soon, and you're going to have to find ways to win that. This could have potentially been 3 games in a row that they took an L on. Singletary, on the other hand, has been benefiting hugely from this lack of offensive throwing firepower that Josh Allen is known for. He ran the ball 18 times for 86 yards and got in the end zone 1 time. He even had 2 receptions for 11 yards. Cook actually played better than Singletary with less touches. He had 11 touches for 86 yards. That's 7 less. That's 9 less touches and 7 less carries. And Cook is slowly working his way up. If something were to happen to Singletary, I swear to God, if Cook is in the free agency market for any of you guys' leagues, I am going to be very upset at you. That's one of those players that he needs to be on your bench. You need to find a way to put him on your bench if he's available. The rest of the offense for the Bills, Diggs, 4 catches, 48 yards and a touchdown. Gabe Davis had 1 extra catch, 5 catches for 68 yards, and Knox, 7 catches for 70 yards. Everybody else you really don't need to worry about being on your team. And the player of the first half of the week, Taylor Bass. What's his name?
Tyler. It's
Tyler Bass. Saves the day with 900 fantasy points. Congratulations, Shovit. You had him in one of your teams.
The NFL saves the day for Tyler Bass owners by moving this game to Detroit. Is what happened.
Yeah.
That probably had 0. He probably would have had 0 fantasy points in that blizzard.
Oh yeah, it's not kickable.
In a 6 feet snow, there's no way.
Yeah. So Tyler Bass looking like he would have been the best player of the week until some other kickers took over later in the day. It would really suck if you're a Tyler Bass owner and you had to play against Brett Maher. Shit happens like that sometimes. But anyways, on the other side, let's make this quick. The Browns really don't have much going on as from a fantasy perspective, but Chubb actually had one of the worst days he could ever have. 14 rushes for 19 yards. Wow. And 3 receptions for 48 yards. Hunt, 5 carries, 32 yards. 2 catches, 22 yards. Brissett had a pretty good game. 28 completions on 41 targets, 324 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And one thing of note, Cooper, when playing at home, has been probably the best receiver in football, and he got a neutral field. We can't call this an away game. So he turned it out to just demolish this game as well. 8 catches on 12 targets for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. Donovan Peoples-Jones also doing his Donovan Peoples-Jones things. 5 catches on 6 targets for 61 yards and a touchdown. Harrison Bryant played more snaps than Njoku did today, but Njoku's coming off of an injury. So monitor all that. All that being said, Browns, these last couple of players, I wouldn't really start them unless they're playing against firepower offenses like the Bills, because they're still a run-first team.
Yeah, great. Just that the last thing I'll say about that game is, again, it turned from there's nobody safe from a fantasy perspective in this game, even Josh Allen included, to everybody rejoice from a fantasy day except Josh Allen. Like that was so weird. That was so weird that everybody like just had an amazing fantasy day in this game except the one person that you'd expect to have the best day.
It's wild. Fantasy is wild, you know?
The NFL is wild, man.
NFL is wild. Absolutely. Next up, Eagles at Colts. The Eagles win this game just barely by a thread, 17-16, and a late resurgence of Jalen Hurts allows them to win this game here. Fantasy wise, Jonathan Taylor, you know, if you've got Jonathan Taylor's in the first half, you weren't very happy with his production, and he was injured too. But now 22 carries, 84 yards, 1 touchdown, and even 3 receptions for 10 receiving yards. So he had a great day. Devontae Smith had a pretty decent day as far as PPR is concerned. 6 receptions, 78 yards. And in between Pittman and Paris Campbell, it was kind of interesting. I was watching this to see who would be the biggest benefactor to this Matt Ryan at the quarterback position. And to me, it still seems like it's Pittman, even though he had 7 targets. Paris Campbell had only 8 targets. But I think the volume is there for Pittman.
That's
and
it
is more targets, but by 1.
Even Alec Pierce had 8 targets. So it's like such a...
Yeah, it's an even spread, but with Matt Ryan, I think they're going to throw the ball. That confidence that you had in the beginning of the seasons for Pittman, you still can go back to that now and start Pittman in your lineups in the next coming weeks, I believe. And Alec Pierce, you probably don't want to start him yet. He had 3 catches on 8 targets, but something to kind of monitor. And Sweetcar, you were right. Last week we talked about Dallas Goedert. His replacement was Jack Stoll, not the other guy. So he only had 1 catch. He was on the field often, but he only had 1 catch, 1 target. So nothing to go to the waiver wire and put all your fab on or anything like that. The biggest takeaway for this game for me, outside of fantasy, was the Eagles barely win this game, and with a 9-1 record, I really don't think the Eagles are as much of a threat as they were maybe in the beginning of the season. I think their Achilles heel of teams being able to run the ball on them is going to come down to haunt them come playoff time when they have to play, better teams out there. And so just barely beating the Colts by 1 point, it's not a really good sign, and I wouldn't put them as a big threat. And their 9-1 record doesn't show I guess their weaknesses.
Yeah, I respect it. I mean, obviously, I think it's a long season for every team, so it's hard to go 17 weeks and find a team with no weaknesses. A lot of these teams I've noticed, at least this week or the past couple of weeks, their weaknesses have been stopping the run. And you're seeing you're seeing how that can work in this NFL where offenses are down, teams are trying to run the ball more. All of a sudden, we're like, oh, we're moving away from this classic running NFL. All of a sudden, everybody wants to run the football because everybody's playing this, 2 safety shell because they're trying to stop their pass and the run is open. So I think teams are taking advantage of that. I expect maybe like the last 4 or 5 weeks for the teams that are getting gashed to adjust as well, just kind of the back and forth of the adjusting of the NFL. But you're right. But it's still tough for me to say the Eagles, you can't take the Eagles seriously or they're not as much of a threat because, it's the NFL. People find weird ways to win the game. yeah, you find weird ways to win football games. All good teams, win close games or win games. Maybe they played ugly, but yeah, I mean, they're not basically they have no weaknesses type team that we saw like the first 6 weeks.
Right. And the last thing I'll add is, Sirianni is a hell of a coach. So I think that
Yeah.
Against the Cowboys, that's their biggest rival. I think Sirianni, and there's an edge as far as the coaching perspective goes. But they played against the Texans, and they did come out with a win. But that was a tough game. They lose against the Commanders, and now the Colts. These are like the bottom feeders of the NFL, and so that concerns me in terms of the Eagles. When it comes time to, well, is this a Super Bowl team that are for sure going to get there? Like, I don't know. I'm a little concerned.
To be determined.
Yep.
One of the ugliest games on Sunday, the Jets at the Patriots, final score 3-10. Over under was 38 and the under got demolished. I mean, who would have thought that? New England was favored by 3.5 points. They covered the spread. Jets dropped to 6-4. Patriots move up to 6-4. So these two teams are now tied second place in that, or maybe third place in that division now, behind Buffalo and Miami. God, that's a good division too. It was a disgusting game, and the disgusting just needs to be pointed at Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is atrocious. He is so bad. Some of his throws make me just want to barf. Like, I just don't understand how an NFL quarterback can do those kind of things. And he's not holding himself accountable at all. He's playing like shit, but not holding himself accountable. Those are just two really, really bad recipes. And disaster is spewing for the Jets because they have a great defense and they need somebody to be formidable enough on offense. That's where I think Joe Flacco can step in and not be such an idiot. MVPs of this game were the defenses. New England held the Jets to 103 total yards of offense. Patriots did have 297 yards of offense, but still nothing crazy. Third down efficiency was the name of the game. Neither team could sustain drives. 3 for 14 for the Jets, 4 for 15 for the Patriots. And, what I expected this game to be was defense and running the football. Even though, I expected running to be great, it wasn't all that great. Damian Harris actually had a better running day than Ramondre Stevenson. 8 carries, 65 yards. Did catch 2 passes for 28 yards. Stevenson, inefficient, 15 carries, only 26 yards. But salvages his day. 6 catches out of the backfield for 56 yards to give himself a more than, valiant effort in terms of fantasy football against a good Jets team. Overall, the wind and the lack of offenses paired with the defensive pressure rate, just exactly how this game turned out is exactly what we thought this game would be. 3-10 final. Patriots take the cake, win a big divisional game playing lights out defense.
Yeah, that second ranked pass rush is something to fear.
Yeah, I'm very scared.
Yeah. Tell me about it. So the West Coast Rams came down yonder to the south to play the Saints this weekend, and the final score was 20-27. Saints took care of business with a hobbled up Rams offense. Rams are now 3-7. New Orleans is 4-7. Dalton probably had one of the best games of his season, going 21 for 25, 260 yards and 3 scores. One of those scores went to Chris Olave. Finally got to see some deep down the middle action with Olave and not just like, let's get like 15 yards here, 20 yards there. Let's have a concussion there, come back. Let's have another concussion. I was getting tired of that Olave, and I'm finally happy they went down for like a 50-yard gain. He caught 5 passes for 102 yards and got a touchdown, making everybody happy. Kamara is just meh, like just meh at this point. I try to send some trade offers this week. Try to trade.
I didn't get a single trade offer from you.
I don't know. I don't know what to send you.
Latavius Murray, man. Latavius
Murray. I don't want no part of Latavius Murray over to you. I want no part of that guy. But I tried to trade for Ramondre Stevenson like 5 times. He just kept rejecting it each time. He's going to regret that one. Regret that one. But anyways, he had a meh day. I think it was like 10.9 fantasy points or something like that. Stafford exited this game with a concussion after already dealing with a concussion last week. So I don't know what the Rams are doing. There's no reason for him to play any more football for the rest of the year. If they're smart, they would not do that. There's really no reason for him to be out there at all. Allen Robinson, we talked about the 3-headed wide receiver monsters or chia pets, I guess, on the Rams.
Monsters, yeah.
And we try to see which one would probably come out on top, which one's worth saving, starting. Well, there's a different reason for each one. Robinson is their red zone option. They can't run the ball in the goal line situation. So what do they do? They send fades to Allen Robinson, and he kind of bailed them out with 1 touchdown. And that's what you're banking on with Robinson at this point if you're going to start him. Higbee actually had a great day. He had 8 targets, 45 yards. That's not a great day, but
that's sad that's a great day because the Rams offense is so
it's so bad. And Higbee had been doing pretty bad before, right after their bye week, I guess, for the last couple of days, weeks. So this was kind of nice to see. He had a drop as well in there. Tutu Atwell, he had that really long touchdown, and we're like second coming of Cup, but he ran the fifth fewest routes amongst all their receivers, and that's just a fugazi. Don't look at that in the stat sheet and be like, I gotta get that guy on my team. Everybody else, Van Jefferson, Skoranek. Skoranek is just a glorified 6'5" fullback. They use him as a fullback, and because there's no protection from the offensive line. And Van Jefferson might benefit moving down the next couple of weeks, but nothing you want a part of. And then the last two things are the two running backs. They just let go of Henderson, which called it from day one. They don't like him. They don't like him even after all that stats. I was like, there's just something about this guy. McVay just does not like Henderson. And now he just broke up with him completely. What does this mean for us? It means nothing. You could just stash Akers if you want. Go ahead. Go ahead. I dare you. I dare you to do that and see how that plays out. And Williams is the other guy who catches some passes. And he's kind of like an Eckler, honestly. They're similar in size. They have similar game plan for them. So if you want to bank for something, maybe bank for that. Outside of that, there's really no other fantasy implications. You guys have any other things to talk about the Rams and the Saints?
No, I got the perfect way the Rams can be a better football team, though. So next week, Ben Skoranek needs to come on the field with the Cooper Kupp jersey. They would never know. They would never know. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, Cooper Kupp's on the field. We need to give this guy extra attention.
Why does he suck so much now?
I mean, dude, I feel like, you're right. He's definitely not going to run as good of routes, but for however long, even if it lasts one play, it's still trickery. They got to try something. They suck. Yeah. Matthew Stafford's not going to play. They're going to have a backup quarterback. They've cut one of their running backs. Like their best receiver is hurt. They have nothing going for them.
You talk about Texans, Panthers, Bears, Raiders, Seahawks. I think we need to start talking about the Rams getting the first overall pick here soon.
Dude, the Super Bowl hangover is about as real as it gets for the LA Rams.
How about Olave, though?
Dude, he's a beast
with over 100 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, 18 points. That was nice to see.
Just imagine Jameis Winston and Olave. Like Jameis Winston would throw the football 50 times a game.
Air yards and then that bomb. Oh man, that would be amazing. Make it happen, Saints. Make it happen. Next up, we've got the Lions at Giants, and Detroit comes up with a win on this one, 31-18, to a surprise to probably a lot of bettors, and myself included. Surprised on the fantasy side, in terms of what you expect from your studs and what you actually received. Let's go to the fantasy side of things. Jamal Williams with not one, not two, but 3 touchdowns in this game. I said it last week. He's the RB1 on this team, and people still continue to start DeAndre Swift, which for whatever reason I do not know. But DeAndre Swift did get a touchdown late in the game, but
that was like a pathetic. Hey, you want to play some football?
Yeah, it's like, hey, you're our starting running backs already scored all of our points, so here we'll give you some salvage.
I mean, when it comes to the red zone and they need to put some bodies in there, some guy with muscles and all that, Jamal Williams is the guy, not DeAndre Swift. And that's why he's the benefactor of all of these multiple touchdown games.
And it's not like Jamal Williams like earning his way into that end zone. Like somebody's grandma could grab that ball and like hobble into the end zone with the kind of touchdowns he's getting.
Yeah, it's not like Najee, breaking tackles or anything.
Dear God.
Moving on. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think, had a solid game. He had 7 targets, even had to carry as well. So fantasy owners are definitely happy with that. Darius Slayton, 9 targets. Wan'Dale Robinson with 13 targets. Although he did get injured, I think Darius Slayton could be a good streaming option moving forward still with the targets, given that volume is the name of the game. Sweetheart, I see you shaking your head there. I don't know if you...
No, I agree, just because there's nobody else now. Wan'Dale's out for season, I think. He got hurt, and he's out for season. We already know Kenny Golladay is on the field, but is invisible. He's wearing the invisibility cloak from Harry Potter, basically. So there's nobody else to throw the football to, right? So Slayton has to be, it's one of those situations where you have to have this guy on your roster. He can't be a free agent because there's no other receivers for them to throw the football to. And the Giants are still good. They're 7-3, so they're going to be trying. So Darius Slayton, by default, needs to be rostered.
Yeah, and in terms of Kenny Golladay, his snap count and his routes run is lower than Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson.
It should be.
Is that a surprise?
He's so bad. Yeah, he's so bad. He's so
Yeah.
bad.
It's not like he's on the field. Like, he's not even getting those chances anymore because I think they've probably seen as much as
Yeah.
they can of him.
Yeah.
Just wasting money. But Saquon, rough day for Saquon. So Saquon holders, just not good. I think that the Lions did a very good job of stopping the run game, surprisingly, and they put up points, and so the
Dude.
game script kind of changed as well. So it's just it's crazy. It's probably one of those games where you're like Saquon Barkley, great matchup, and then Dudley performance, and that's just what happens sometimes.
You know what's funny is that's exactly like think about this before this week started. Saquon Barkley against the Detroit Lions, like that is a matchup made in heaven, right? And then I was just scrolling through Twitter, and there were so many people that were like, "Did anybody else have a shit show of a week where your team just didn't show up?" And like you have teams like that had Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, Justin Jefferson. I can't remember, like some other
Damian
really good
Pierce.
players. Yeah, maybe Pierce, and they had like a total of 40 fantasy points. Like so this was just one of those weeks where so many studs did nothing. And then you had all these streamable quarterbacks like the Daltons, the Garoppolos throwing 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. Like it's again, the anomaly of fantasy football. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think every single fantasy, whatever you want to call yourself, would have been like Saquon Barkley against Detroit, RB1 on the week. And this is just kind of the shit that you get sometimes.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that, and it's like an average game, right? You're not gonna have home run hitters do home run hitting things every single week. I think sometimes you're gonna have these 4 or 5 points, but it's like the long game, and you just want players that will produce as much as possible.
Consistent force, baby.
What's
Yeah.
that?
Consistent force.
Yes.
That's the method you play fantasy football with. You want to
Right.
average out to 100 points or more by your whole team every week.
Right.
Yeah. That takes us to Baltimore, where another ugly game transpired. All I'm doing is talking about ugly games. I don't know how this happened. Baltimore against the Panthers, 13-3 final score. Carolina was a 13-point underdog. They cover the spread. Under 41 was an easy bet. Carolina now 3-8. Baltimore somehow 7-3. Ugly offensive performance for both sides. Baker Mayfield, what do you expect? 196 in the air, no touchdown passes. Surprise, surprise, 2 interceptions. Deontay Foreman, 11 carries for 24 yards. All of a sudden, Foreman has come down to earth. Terrence Marshall, 3 catches, 76 yards, outplays DJ Moore for 3 catches and 24 yards. So, just bad. Carolina offense bad. Don't start anybody unless it's a favorable matchup. Then you start Foreman.
No. If Foreman's on Chauvet's bench, which is likely going to be next week, then you got to start Foreman. That's just how things go.
Yeah. Chauvet's bench Foreman. You start him. Chauvet starts Foreman, bench him.
Chauvet has never reaped the benefits of a Foreman.
I have never reaped the benefit of a bench play. Like Eno Benjamin was the same thing. I
I
benched Eno
know.
Benjamin, and he went off. I start him next week, 2 points against the Vikings.
That's frustrating, man. I'm in my other league. I'm surprisingly on the other end of that. Like I told you guys, I traded for Gabe Davis. The week I traded for him, like 33 points. The week after that, I think he had like 20 points. And then I traded him away, and he's been so bad since, right? And then I traded for Tony Pollard, and I think the 3 weeks I've had Tony Pollard, he's had 30 plus twice and like 25 once.
Yep.
So it's been unreal. Sometimes everything goes your way, and sometimes nothing does. And for the Panthers, nothing really goes their way anymore. Lamar had a bad game, yet the Ravens still won. 209 yards passing, no touchdown passes, 1 interception. And something about Lamar Jackson just doesn't feel right. He's only running the ball 11 times for 31 yards and a touchdown. The running game was Kenyon Drake, 10 for 46. Justice Hill, 7 for 30. And Gus Edwards, who was trending to play, just didn't play. And, I guess the only guy I really want to highlight, Mark Andrews, 6 for 63, the usual. And Demarcus Robinson, 9 catches, 128 yards. Duvernay is a gadget guy. Rashad Bateman, gone. Deshaun Jackson, 1 catch, hamstring. Is Demarcus Robinson in a situation that's also by default, you look at stashing this guy on your bench, or do you just say, F this?
No, you say F this. It's the Ravens offense we're talking about. They don't give a shit about wide receivers. It's run, run, run. Mark Andrews, run, run, run. Some rando wide receiver, run, run, run. Like, if you can't rely on them. That's the problem. Yeah, you can keep him on the team and see what happens. Even when Bateman was there, he wasn't really productive outside of some deep bombs. And, Demarcus Robinson isn't really Bateman when it comes down to deep bombs. So I think you can benefit off of some random starts here and there, but for consistency wise, like, I want no part of Demarcus Robinson. When are you ever going to start Demarcus Robinson?
Yeah, maybe 14, 16 team leagues or something. He's a wide receiver 1 right now, right? So that's the only thing that I'm holding on to. But other than that, you're right. It's not a sexy play, and you could literally just get goose egged a week.
Yeah, that'd be scary.
Later.
I cannot afford those this late in the season.
No, nobody can. But Panthers take another L. They're 3-8. problems galore. They're starting Sam Darnold now next week, so the problems just
Dude,
continue.
this is the best case scenario for the wide receivers. But statistically, he has been creating the most options for the wide receiver group there. So maybe we'll see some 10-9 catch games from at least some of the wide receivers.
Yeah, let's hope so. They're probably getting bored out there.
Let's not. I'm actually enjoying this. This is like I've eliminated the Panthers wide receivers from my like scope of thinking, and it's kind of nice. It's less stuff to worry about. And if they start catching 25, I'm like, fuck, I gotta trade for this guy. I gotta do this. It's stressful.
Yeah, one less team with no fantasy guys. You're just like, screw them. They're gone.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Foreman's still going to be in my starting lineup, especially if Sherbert benches him. All right. Yeah.
Your league to see what you do and just follow you, and hopefully I can be different.
Well, that's weird because I'm following you, so that's going to create a black hole, and we're all going to get no fantasy points. So we can't be doing that.
It's a chess match till like 11:59. The last person to make the move, the other person tries to make the move.
Yeah, that's fine. That's actually funny. All right, we're talking about bad games. I'm going to raise you one more. Commanders went to go visit the Texans. Final score was 23-10. Sloppy game here everywhere. Washington is now 6-5. Houston's now 1-8-1. And right after the game, Washington named Heineke the starter moving forward this season. So that's kind of nice to see. But, you know, he's still garbanzo beans. He threw for 15 completions for 27 attempts. 191 yards. Didn't really have to do much because it's the Texans, and you just run the ball on the Texans. Gibson ran the ball 18 times for 72 yards. Brian Robinson ran it 15 times for 57 yards. Gibson's the third down guy, so he got some catches on third down too. 3 for 3 for 31 yards. And Samuel also got some running work there and got in the end zone. So, you know, it's just I don't know what part of this you want. I guess you want Gibson, unless it's a really bad defense and and the Texans are projected to win, which is rare and could never happen moving forward. So those are the games Robinson would probably get more benefit there. But if one of these guys goes down, you have an every down running back, even though what's his name is not going to run the ball at all. So Robinson's not going to get any passing work at all. But we've seen him get 26 carries before. So if Gibson were to go down, he wouldn't be a bad running back starting option. Receiver-wise, I really don't want to start anybody on these two teams, unless you have to. We kind of saw some signs of greatness from TMC last week. But they didn't really have to throw that much, so we didn't really get to see what could happen the next game. It was an average day at the office for them. Logan Thomas kind of came out of nowhere. It was nice to see because he was such a stud a couple of years ago, and then injuries have been derailing his career and kind of got some work here. He had the most targets, I believe, this game for that team, and he ended up with 5 receptions for 65 yards. So, you know, I mean, at this point, not from a fantasy football perspective, but from a football perspective, the Commanders aren't going to win the division. There's too many good teams on that division, so they're going to be playing spoiler. And I'm excited to see what kind of spoiling they'll do because they're like the definition of a team that has the potential to spoil some real teams.
And it works out because, you know, their division is everybody that's in the playoff race. So as a Vikings fan, you want them beating the Cowboys, you want them beating the Giants, and you want them beating the Eagles. So we're big Commanders fans now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then just a little bit on the Texans side from a fantasy football perspective, they had 5 yards at halftime. Okay. They had 5 yards. I think the Vikings had more yards at halftime in that shitty of a game we had. But the yardage comparison at halftime was 246-5. So they were just it was not set up for success there. Cooks kind of had a pretty good game. I'm sure he wants to kind of like go home and cry in his basement or whatever the hell, because he caught 3 catches on 6 targets for 70 yards, all for what though? Like he has to be looking at himself in the mirror every morning. Like, why do I exist? Why did
they not trade me? Why am I not playing for a contender?
Yeah. It's NFL hell. It's like being in hell for Cooks. And I'm just sorry. Like there's nothing good coming out of this except for, you know, paychecks, I guess. Nico Collins, I was hoping there was some points here. I knew this was going to be the outcome score-wise, so they were going to be struggling. But he had more targets than Cooks did. Just didn't do anything. This team was just not set up for success at any point. Mills had probably one of his worst games, and then Pierce had his worst game. 10 rushes for 8 yards. My lord, that's bad. 2 catches for 9 yards. Commanders, man, I'm telling you, this defensive line is like top 5 in the league in putting up pressure. I saw that against Kirk Cousins when he had to throw those bombs to Jay Jettas. while getting railed, getting murdered, just turned out in our favor. Didn't work so well against the Cowboys. So that just tells you the difference between the number 1 ranked pass rush versus the number 5 ranked pass rush is so vast. That's how good the Cowboys pass rush really is.
Yeah, and the Commanders are going to be, chomping at that bit with Chase Young back now. So
Right.
they're going to be eyeing for that number 1 pass rush prize. So anytime you have a good pass rush, you're going to be in a lot of games.
Absolutely.
All right. Speaking of pass rush and sacks in that category, Broncos saw a lot of that facing the Raiders. The spread was 2.5 points favoring Broncos, and the under is 41.5. Did not. So the under hit 22-16 is the final score. Raiders come up with the win on this game. In terms of fantasy, first off, Devontae Adams, 7 receptions, 141 yards, 2 touchdowns, with the game-winning touchdown in overtime. He had a solid game against Patrick Surtain, who, not two, definitely not
who?
one. Exactly. So Devontae Adams, a lights-out performance there. Josh Jacobs also pretty good, 24 carries, 109 yards, 3 receptions, and a respectable 51 yards. So moving on with the fantasy implications monitor, Chase Edmonds injury. I think that Latavius Murray, you said you wanted no part of him. If Chase Edmonds isn't there, I think he is a must-add if Edmonds is out. Kendall Hinton gets the start for Jerry Jeudy. He had 3 receptions, 57 yards. He's a waiver wire add with a matchup against the Panthers and the Ravens, who rank in the top 10 in allowing fantasy points to wide receivers. And then Matt Collins had 6 catches on 9 targets for 52 yards, filling that Hunter Renfrow role pretty well as well as you can with Devontae Adams taking up all of the receptions and touchdowns on the team. Yeah, you can have. But I think that's a fairly decent number for a wide receiver too. Streaming option, maybe not someone you want to start all week, but just something to look at. So moving on to the game, I think that the Raiders had this game pretty much all the way through. I thought that there was a fumble in the goal line where the Broncos got the ball back. I think that caused them to not even score on that drive, because that same drive they had a field goal blocked, and then on third downs it was sacks or pressures by the Raiders, and it was Russ had just no time to throw the ball, and I think that definitely hurt their situation. The game goes to overtime, and like I said, Adams destroyed PS2 to get that touchdown. But in terms of the Broncos, the biggest question marks have been like, is this a coaching issue? Is Russ the problem? I think that moving forward, they're kind of getting in the rhythms with things as far as the offense goes, at least in the first half. But then when you're not able to move the chains on third down, you're just not going to win. And then having that blocked field goal, really, it was a 3-point game, right? It was 16-13 going into a minute 30 in the fourth quarter, and they kicked a field goal to get to overtime. So it's those like things that happen in the game, like the fumble and then the missed field goals, that kind of made them lose the game. But all in all, to say that I think that we're overreacting to some of the coaching issues and Russ problems. I think that it's more of a young team outside of Russ, but just a team with a new coach trying to get into the groove and feel of things, and that they will be all right is my takeaway from this game.
Man, that's a bold, optimistic takeaway for the Broncos losing to the Raiders, who are literally the team that nobody wants to bet any money or any ounce of anything on. Back to the coaching, it's interesting because Hackett, they're trying to make adjustments. Hackett was calling the offensive plays. He said, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to focus on coaching. So Clint Kubiak, former Viking offensive coordinator, was calling the plays, and they still weren't having any luck. So, we don't know what the whole story is, but we're slowly in a process of elimination, and the one constant remains, and that is Mr. $250 million man, Russ Wilson, right? So, I mean, honestly, guys, at this point, who would you rather have, Russell Wilson or Zach Wilson? The fact that we've reached this point in a conversation, where the hell has the NFL gone? Where has Russell Wilson? I was listening to other podcasts, and people were like, Russell Wilson was a surefire Hall of Famer before coming into this season. And all of a sudden you're like, dude, what do you make of Russell Wilson now? He is so bad.
Yeah,
he's not so bad though. He's bad. He was making throws to Courtland Sutton that you were like, oh, okay, nice, and running out of the pocket, and
that's something hard to do. Kirk Kirk Cousins makes great throws to receivers all the time. We don't talk about
you can again. That's like
the
way you're saying that is like creating a highlight reel for somebody. You can find one good throw, one good play for everybody every single game. Create a 10-minute clip of all of these good throws that he made, right? But that's not the point.
No,
the
man.
point is consistency. There is no consistency.
There's certain level of play we need when we call them Hall of Famers. When we call
$250 million.
You're playing like worse than Andy Dalton right now, bro. And like, at what point? It's been 11 weeks. How often are we going to say, "Oh, yeah, the Broncos, they're one move away from greatness"? Like, I'm tired of that shit. I've been one of the biggest Russell Wilson supporters all week long or all year long. I'm like, oh, they'll be fine. So I told Sweetheart this on this podcast like 7 times. Oh, don't worry, it's just Russell Wilson. Oh, he'll be back. He's a Hall of Famer. He'll be back, dude. At what point are you the idiot here for just keep saying the same thing? You're not seeing the work happen on the field. Like, I'm tired of watching the Broncos, and I'm tired of people thinking Russell Wilson is this savior that he clearly isn't. There's a step that's lost. He's lost some of his receivers now, and this Greg Dortch shit, like, it was overhyped beyond belief. He's just an average dude trying to do some average shit in the NFL. This team is average. His defense is elite, but this team, the offense especially, is a dumpster fire in the running back situation. It's just, the whole thing is a shit show.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that this year it's probably not going to be a playoff. They're not going to get a playoff spot.
Who are you going to get the playoff spot from? The AFC is no joke. The Bills have the 6th seed right now. Like, you're going to beat the Bills, Denver? I don't think so, man.
Yeah. But there's always next year. I mean,
there's still this year too. Okay, if we're gonna get really political here, there's still time.
There's always next year to every team that sucks, right? We're not looking forward into next season. We're looking at the here and the now, and they're trying. They hired a head coach this year, like a brand new head coach. In middle of the season, they were like, "Hey, you're not calling the offensive plays anymore." That's a drastic change for a newly hired head coach in the middle of the same season to make. So they are trying every which way to figure out this snafu. But again, it starts with Russell Wilson. Like, it starts with Russell Wilson making plays. And if he's not making plays, there's nothing, because they don't have money. They're not going to have money to allocate to any other players. So it's like, oh, he doesn't have any help. Well, maybe you shouldn't ask for $250 million so the team can't spend on anything else. Like that, if you're getting paid that much money, you're responsible for that portion of the team's success. I'm sorry. That's just how it works. And right now you are dog shit. You are absolute dog shit. You're not even like serviceable. You're not even a game manager. You are like the reason the team sucks. Russell Wilson ran over. I would take Zach Wilson because Zach Wilson's still young. Maybe you can fix something. Russell Wilson's old. He's set in his ways, and he costs way too much. Yes. So give me Zach Wilson. That's sad. That's where we're at.
I'm still taking Russell Wilson over Zach Wilson. But you're right. The money part is it sucks. You paid $250 million.
It's all.
You expect more from a guy that you pay that much.
I expect anything, not even just more. Like
you expect God-like play from somebody that got $250 million. Yeah, sorry, dude. Like, the pressure's on. It's a one-man. NFL's a team sport. I don't give a shit. You're demanding like half of the team's salary. You have to be like freaking Lord and Savior Jesus Christ at that moment. Like, you're demanding that much money, so you have to play like it. It's okay. I'll make this next segment short. The Cowboys and Vikings played this week. Vikings played the worst game of their lives. 40-3 final. Nobody showed up on Minnesota. Dallas dominated everything. Reverse game script. Cowboys just went up early. First possession for the Vikings. Strip sack fumble from who? Micah Parsons. So we saw the writing on the wall. Christian Darrisaw goes down with a concussion. He should not have played. You can see guys that come back early from concussions, one hit to the head and they're concussed again, right? So there is a sign that these guys that are concussed should not be coming back soon. And now I expect Darrisaw to probably miss 2 to 3 weeks. And he is the best graded offensive tackle in the NFL. So losing that on your offensive line is equivalent to losing like an Aaron Donald, losing TJ Watt. That's how valuable that position is for this offense. And so nothing worked. Dallas is 7-3, Minnesota 6-2. Cowboys dominated this game. I mean, Dak, amazing. Zeke, amazing. Tony Pollard, unreal. Cowboys defense, feasted. There was probably nobody on Minnesota's side, maybe Dalvin Cook that you started that you're like, okay, I guess 70-something yards on 11 carries. But JJ, turf toe, that's scary because turf toes are lingering. And the way he played this game, if that's an indication that he's hurt, then you're worried.
Dude, he was wide open every fucking play. We just couldn't.
But no time. We have no time.
Like by the time he turned around, he was sacked. Like there
was a play where it was shotgun, and I shit you not. By the time the ball was hiked to Kirk Cousins, the defender was already there. I was like, what in the fuck? So, like, it's a shit show. It's an absolute shit show. 63% of dropbacks he was pressured. Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, 2 years ago, where he just
32.
had nothing,
32%.
like 50, 32 or I thought it was closer to like almost 50, but it was high. It was very, very high. And Kirk Cousins at 63%. I mean, no quarterback, nobody, not a single person can sit behind a 65% pressure rate
I'm just
and do anything.
surprised that he's not dead. Like there was a post-game interview where he was not injured, and I'm like, whoa, okay, so we're not completely out. And another thing on this Darisaw situation, that's the first sack fumble was on Darisaw. That was the first time he allowed a sack all year. And that was because it was Micah Parsons running through his throat all the way across the other side of the field. So we lost him. And what's funny is that some of the other sacks weren't even on the left tackle side. It was just straight up the middle. Center was getting fucked. Right guard was getting fucked. Left guard was getting fucked. It was just a massacre. These Cowboys, again, I am not playing around. Like they're by far the best team in the NFC. And I think it should be a Cowboys 49ers NFC Championship game if they really want to put out the two of the best NFC products for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, pass rush, man, no joke. They're the best pass rush in the country, and right now,
look at that offense. Now
if you can't block them, again, all the offense has to do is basically play complementary football now, and that's what this team is doing right now. So the Cowboys are scary, 7-3, definitely a force to be reckoned with. Vikings regrouping at 8-2, but the good thing is when you're a good football team, you build yourself a buffer to have duds. The Patriots the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl and lost 38-3 to the Saints in the regular season, right? Every team has duds, but it's just a roadblock. The good thing is they play on Thursday in 4 days to basically get this sour taste out of your mouth. So it works out really well. It's an opportunistic time to lose the game. Nobody wants to lose, but we weren't going to go 16-1. I don't think anybody thought that. So scrap it, short-term memory, move on. Cowboys, basically anybody you started on their fantasy team on the Cowboys side, you did well, maybe outside of their pass catchers.
Yeah, going against the number 1 pass rush, and now in 4 days going against the number 2 pass rush. We'll see how that plays out. Speaking of pass rush, TJ Watt is back for the Steelers. The Bengals came to visit him and the rest of the Steelers. The over and under was at 40.5. That got smashed. Cincinnati was favored by 4, and they ended up taking the dub. Cincinnati 6-4 now. Pittsburgh 3-7. Joe Burrow had his classic Joe Burrow days with the 4 tutties, 24 for 39 on 39 targets, 355 yards. The name of the game here is Mixon and his injury. He had a concussion as well. Surprisingly, though, the Pirine vulturing happened mainly before he got a concussion. Pirine had 3 receiving scores. He caught 4 catches. 3 of those were touchdowns for 52 yards. Okay. So, and two of those touchdowns happened before Mixon left the game. So there's some level of, interesting situation there. After Mixon left, Pirine totaled up to 11 rushes for 30 rushing yards and 4 catches for 52 yards in the 3 tutties we mentioned. Mixon ran the ball not that bad, 7 rushes for 20 yards, 3 receiving catches for 42 yards. Higgins had a really, really dominant day where he could not be stopped. 9 catches for 148 yards on 13 targets. Boyd got asked to play outside. I heard that he got to play outside like 15 minutes before the game, and that's when you know if you have Boyd in your lineup, you got to change that shit ASAP. He had to play outside and really did bad. He had 2 catches on 7 targets for 42 yards. This is I just understand that there's a really good chance Mixon is not playing this upcoming game, looking at how all these concussion protocols have happened this year. Little to nobody comes back within a week, and there's a really good chance. So I think
if they do, they get hurt again. If they do, they get concussed again and leave the game.
Right. That too. So this is a really good opportunity to pick up Pirine, especially if he's getting the passing work, which he most likely will get. So, these are the kind of players that are going to win you this upcoming week if you can get a hold of them. That's that. And then on the other end, Kenny Pickett's still not a startable person. I think he's making his way to possibly being one. But 25 completions on 42 tosses, 265 yards and 1 touchdown. That 1 touchdown was by Pickens. He was my guy of the week for this team, for this game. 4 catches on 6 targets, 83 yards and a touchdown for Pickens. Freiermuth had the best day. On 12 targets, he caught 8 of them for 79 yards. And Deontay Johnson is still not in the end zone. And at this point, man, Is he going to get in the end zone? I
He
don't
only
know.
runs drag routes. He runs a lot of drag routes and comeback
I
routes.
mean,
Like
that's
it's
what he
like
did mainly with what's his name, Big Ben
Big Ben.
too. But the thing is, like, they established those more and more. So then when he could do like one fake on one of those drag routes, he'd be open downfield. But they haven't gotten that chemistry ready to even make that even a worry. They're kind of letting him have those nowadays. So I don't know. Until that vertical threat is established, these quick inside stuff isn't really going to scare anybody. So no one's really going to bite on those. I think Pickens is going to be moving forward. He's going to be startable. I almost started him this week. I started last minute Pacheco over him, so I lost 6 points there. But at the end of the day, Pickens, I think he's a viable starter, especially against teams that are high-powered throwing teams you're playing against, and with a weaker defense, you got to start him. It's almost like a must start. If the Steelers have to throw the ball is going to Pickens. If they want to catch up or if they want to score points, it's going to Pickens.
Yeah, and then I think you were gonna mention him, but Najee had like his best game of the season.
Oh yeah, my bad. I have it written right there. Yeah, Najee, man, 20 touches on the ground for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. A really, really good run for 20 yards. That he had to like do some weird hurdle things at the end zone. It was nice to see that he can still do all that. 4 catches for 26 yards, and a lot of the catching work happened after Warren left the game early. Nothing really for owners to worry about, but that's something nice for the Harris owners to not be afraid of anymore. Even if Harris has a really bad week, Warren's not coming in anytime soon. I forgot what the injury was, but I suspect Harris to be started handsomely, 98% starting moving forward.
Hopefully he's back, man. I'm glad that we scored 30 points though. The offense was like a big concern. Even if defense let's a lot of points, scoring 30 points against the Bengals, I think that's the biggest thing to be happy about as a Steelers fan.
Got to find a silver lining when you're losing a lot. I feel that.
You do, man. At 3-7, anything, any silver lining is good. All right, next up, Sunday Night Football. This was such a fun game. Chiefs at Chargers. The Chiefs were favored by 5 points. The over was 52, and it did get hit at 57. And sure enough, the Chiefs didn't cover their spread.
What did I say? Oh,
Surprise.
look at me!
Surprise!
Surprise!
Let's start with the fantasy implications first. Everybody and their mom, including me, was talking about Kadarius Toney, but he gets hurt. And Sky Moore had a solid game, but trust no one from this receiving core. No one. I think just stay away. Just stay. If it's not Kelsey and if it's not Patrick Mahomes or Pacheco, maybe Pacheco, just stay away. Mike Williams had an ankle injury after having
nice. Both of my guys I started. Thanks. Salt on the wound. Salt on the wound.
4 targets, and he still won. It's all good. And Mike Williams had he got an ankle injury. He was out after 4 targets. Keenan Allen, though, 5 catches for 94 yards, did have a fumble, but I think that he is going to be back in the lineups for people. Keenan Allen, even though he did this all having lower routes run than Joshua Palmer and DeAndre Carter. So if Keenan Allen's there and he's going to start now, you put him in there. Isaiah Pacheco had some really solid runs. Looks a lot better than CEH, like we've been talking about. And Joshua Palmer, this is a guy that you probably didn't start, and he had a great day on most people's benches. And it makes sense. Mike Williams is back, Keenan Allen's back. Why would you start Joshua Palmer? But they were on pitch counts, and so Palmer and DeAndre Carter did get most of the routes, like I mentioned. Game notes. So I've got here written down Mahomes to Kelsey, and lastly, Mahomes to Kelsey, because that's what it was, man. When push comes to shove and you need some touchdowns for the Chiefs, that's the connection that is always just going to be there, like bread and butter. Yeah, man. Probably the greatest tight end of all. I mean, a duo, probably, yeah. Kelsey surpasses Gronkowski with the most 100-yard games after this one. And so from one goat to the other goat. But yeah, it was a fun game. It was down to the wire. Chargers, Eckler scores a touchdown late in the game with I think it was like a minute 30 remaining, something like that. And then sure enough, Patrick Mahomes connects with Travis Kelsey to get the touchdown and win the game 30-27. I mean, it was just wild. Just watch the highlights of seeing what happened. It was just classic Chiefs stuff going on. But nonetheless, fun Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, I like how you use the word fun because it should have been fun, but it was anything but fun for me. It was very, very not fun. It was the opposite of fun watching this game. And here's another example of you can do all the right things, right? I wouldn't have expected anybody to start Keenan Allen. I think if you started Keenan Allen this week, I don't know why. You knew he was going to be limited. He was on a snap count. They said that. He had 5 catches for 94 yards, right? So make that make sense. Wow. If you started Keenan Allen, you were like, oh, wow, I surprisingly got a good day. Mike Williams, I'm 200%. Mike Williams, no snap count. Mike Williams, no limitations, literally jumps up, catches the ball, and re-sprains his high ankle. Like that is the epitome of just fantasy bullshit. Like that is just straight. And then, yeah, like you said, when you hear, if we had heard that both these guys were on snap counts, I would have 100% been like, okay, I'm still going to start Josh Palmer then. But the fact that they said Williams, no snap count, Allen, snap count. I was like, okay, then if Williams is 100% against the Chiefs, who he typically dominates against, by the way, I was like, that's an easy start. Obviously, I'm going to bench Joshua Palmer. So, like, again, an example of you could do all the right things. You get all the right information, and it still finds a way to fuck you. Kadarius Toney, man, don't even get me started. Like, that dude, just go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
So, like, that was just, like,
Dude,
oh, my God.
The Kadarius Toney thing, I feel like, is, like, oh man, this is gonna get really weird. But like, there's reasons why I just don't want that guy on my team, and this is one of those reasons. It's like, when have you been reliable for me? You know, barring that wide open ass touchdown last week where he just kind of like jumped in the end zone or whatever. Like, you haven't seen enough to be like, all right, this guy's my lineup lock. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. It's like desperation times. I get it. Like when you don't know who to start, but like if you have other options, like I'm not jumping into injured players first of all, and I'm not jumping into people that have never shown me anything. You know what I mean? Unless there's huge upsides or other people aren't playing, like this Kadarius Toney situation where a lot of his other teammates weren't playing. But besides that, if I just hear the word Kadarius Toney, I'm like, see ya. You can go hang out with Latavius Murray because I want no part of this.
The thing is though, like Mecole Hardman was out, right? And then
Yeah.
Juju is dealing
Right.
with, I think, a concussion. So Sky Moore and Watson and Toney, those are your only 3 options. And out of those 3, you know, you've got a guy that they went out and picked their second round draft pick, they traded their second pick in the draft, second round pick in the draft for this guy. So like that puts a little bit more weight to like justify drafting Toney. But yeah, I mean, you know, we
It's
can't.
Patrick Mahomes, man. Like it could be someone's dad out there, someone's truck driver dad out there. He's going to get in the end zone twice. It's like, it's just, if there's one thing we learned from this whole situation, it's like you said, Shovit, it's Mahomes and it's Kelsey, and then it's just a randomness of things that happen. I think
Right.
Pacheco, they're trying to make him less random by giving him more of the carries, and now CEH is like hobbled up or whatever. He just sucks. And then the other guy's hobbled up. McKinnon not getting rushing work ever, here and there. So I think he's becoming more of a lineup lock. I think Pacheco, and like especially in non-PPR leagues, should be started immediately. In PPR leagues, the guy's kind of, he's like a no-crow football player in my eyes. Like, he has no idea what the rules are, first of all. In that kick return, he like grabbed the ball and stayed inbounds instead of getting a 40-yard penalty to go, like, have your team near midfield. He was like, nah, let's take it here at the 7-yard line. Like, there's zero football IQ. And that's exactly why he hasn't been thrown into the starting lineup when all these people are like, look at Pacheco. He runs like a maniac. Why aren't they start using him more? Well, that's exactly why. He does not know how football works. He just thinks, grab ball, go forward, run over people. Like, that's what he's thinking.
That just reminds me of that game. Back in the days, it was, I forget, that like really good running back that would run. It's like this old school Sega game, and you just do kickoff returns and run with that.
Bo Jackson?
Yeah, Bo Jackson.
Tecmo Bowl or whatever.
Tecmo Bowl.
Yeah.
And the rundown with Monday Night Football. The 49ers travel to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. Arizona on the road favored by 8 points, over under 43.5. 38-10 final. San Francisco covers the spread, over cashes. San Francisco is now 6-4. Arizona drops to 4-7. No Kyler Murray this game, but I mean, honestly, would it have really mattered? Arizona looked bad. James Conner does his usual shit. 14 for 42, found the end zone. Great job, James Conner. 2 catches, 12 yards. DeAndre Hopkins, doesn't matter who's a quarterback. He's going to get open. 9 catches, 91 yards. Greg Dortch, man, you know what's funny about Greg Dortch? He was the guy that I was ready to swap out Hopkins for if Hopkins was a last second scratch. And ideally, he would have had a better day. 9 catches for 103 yards. That dude is like basically what Rondale Moore should be, but Rondale Moore is hurt. He can't stay on the field. But I really like the way Greg Dortch plays. He doesn't drop anything basically that's thrown his way. And like in a year where we're seeing too many star-studded receivers make easy ass drops, I respect a guy that catches everything that's thrown his way. Tight end action, we talked about it. Is it going to be McBride? Is it going to be Williams? McBride, 4 targets, 4 catches, 14 yards. Max Williams, 1 target, 1 catch, 7 yards. On the 49ers side, because that's what matters, Himmy G is what they're calling him. 228 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Elijah Mitchell gets more carries than CMC, 9 carries for 59 yards. He saw more work starting like the second quarter, so I didn't really make anything of it. CMC 7 for 39, still 7 for 67 through the air, so he is obviously a must start. Deebo Samuel, I benched him for shits and giggles, and he finally has a good game. 7 for 57 catching, 3 for 37, and finally had that one long, infamous Deebo Samuel touchdown run. Brandon Ayuk, I said I like him better as a pass catcher than Deebo Samuel. He only got 2 passes, only got 20 yards, but 2 motherfucking touchdowns, baby. 2 for 20. That is efficient. And what did I say? George Kittle might be a resurgence. Worst defense against tight ends. 4 catches, 84 yards. 2 of those tutties.
Yeah, we saw why they're called the worst defense against tight ends. Neither of those catches should have been touchdowns, by the way. Jimmy G's stat should have ended at 2 touchdowns to Ayuk. But Kittle, with this really porous tight end defense, caught that ball, went through like 3 defenders, on one catch, he went untouched down the sideline, where a defender clearly, all he had to do was get in front of him, decided not to. It's just, the Cardinals are bad. The Cardinals are a shit show. Now the offense is a shit show. It's just a matter of time until they start benching Hopkins, and I'm starting to sweat over here.
Yeah, that would be bad for me in my other league as well. Do not do that. What's funny, if you started an entire San Francisco 49ers offense, or their entire team for that matter, Jimmy G, 25.42 fantasy points. CMC, 14.1, respectable. Deebo, 18.9. Ayuk, 15. Kittle, 22.4. 49ers defense, 10 points. Robbie Gould even, 8 points. That equals 113.8 fantasy points. Damn. And that doesn't even count your RB2, and that doesn't even include a flex play. So there you have it. If you started the 49ers' entire offense, you may have even started Elijah Mitchell in there.
How did he do? How did Mitchell do?
He had like 5 points or 6 points or something like that. Right. So you could have started Elijah Mitchell, and you could have started, a random flex. Juwan Jennings, if you want to get cute. Dortch, if you wanted to go crazy. I guess he's on the other team. But even if you started Juwan Jennings and Elijah Mitchell, your team would have put up 120 fantasy points, starting an entire lineup from one team. That is a fantasy player's dream of a game. But ideally, I only had the defense, and they stepped up when it mattered, got 10 fantasy points, got me the dub. 49ers look scary, 38-10 final. Take it with a grain of salt. It was Arizona, and they are in shambles. That's it for the rundown. Let's hand out our awards, guys. All right, my first award. Whoa, just take it easy, man. That is my first award.
I definitely know who this is.
Yeah, it's the hints there are so obvious. Read the rest of it.
The last hint got me.
Yeah.
10th overall fantasy football, not just his position, and then first in position by almost 80 points.
He is the 10th fantasy football player, 10th ranked.
Yep. Any idea, Shove It?
It's so easy. Come on. You already talked about it, Shove It.
Travis Kelce.
Travis motherfucking Kelce, man. Dude, just take it easy. Even if it's unreal how all this guy does is catch touchdowns. Like Mahomes, all right, no one's open. Kelce, you're there. No one's open. Kelce, you're there. I'm not going to look at anybody else. Kelce. All this guy does is produce. It's becoming just next level. He already is arguing in the argument for the best tight end of all time. He just honestly, I don't have him on any of my teams. So I'm not the happy benefactor. So I'm just like the Drake. I'm like, whoa, just take it easy, man. Leave some room for somebody else. All you do is dominate. So if you have Travis Kelce, your fantasy team, if you drafted Travis Kelce, I don't see a world where your fantasy team is not at least 500. Somebody send me a team where you have a team with Travis Kelce and your team is not at least 500 pushing for the playoffs. So he gets my whoa, just take it easy, man award.
All right. My award is called the Max Holloway Award. You guys know who Max Holloway is?
Yeah, UFC fighter.
Oh. Yeah, he's a UFC fighter. Okay.
It's close. That was my next guess.
What did you guess he was?
He said Stranger Things actor.
No, but it does get pretty strange in Max Holloway world. So I'm giving out this award because Max Holloway has landed the most punches in UFC history. He's also received the most punches in UFC history, and this award is more for the receiving part. So this award goes out to the Vikings offensive line for letting Kirk Cousins have 63% pressure rate, which is double the rate that Patrick Mahomes faced in the Super Bowl when everybody was like, oh my God, get this guy an offensive line. This is atrocious. We'll double that. And that's what happened against the Cowboys. So Max Holiday Award for some games beating the shit out of your opponents and some games having the worst game your quarterback has ever had in his life. So congratulations. You get the Max Holloway Award.
Nice. It's a very fitting award there. Next up, my award is going to be Put Me In, Coach Award. This is going to be. All right. He's the backup running back.
Tony Pollard.
Samaje Perine. Oh, Tony Pollard's a good one too. Samaje Perine gets the Put Me In, Coach Award with 3 touchdowns and a handful of catches and yards and just, 3 touchdowns. Enough said. So he probably wants to be in the game. Mixon has those, games where he's like 2.4 yards per carry and pretty bad average.
Five touchdowns.
But 1 game, 5 touchdowns. And so, he wants to be in the game. So he gets to Put Me In, Coach Award.
The moral of the story is you just put anybody as a Cincinnati Bengals running back, and I guess all they do is score touchdowns.
But they have to be able to catch the ball.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the one requirement. You don't have to run the ball well, but you got to be able to catch the ball.
Run the ball for 2 yards a carry, but just don't drop the ball when we throw it to you. My game ball this week, guys, already talked about him. It goes to Himmy Garoppolo, because he is him.
I cringe every time I hear that. I can't help it.
I know.
It's so cringy.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, man. He's just in such a opportunistic situation. He plays with the mastermind, Kyle Shanahan. Again, 228 yards through the air, 4 touchdowns, just puts the ball where it needs to be and lets Debo run for 80 yards. Let's Kittle run for 40 yards. Let's Ayuk moss somebody. Let's CMC shift his way for a couple yards. All Jimmy G does is basically just puts the ball there, and then everybody else does everything else. But it doesn't matter. The stats on the sheet show that this guy had a historic day. So 38-10 defeat. He is a streamable fantasy option. He's not even a starting fantasy quarterback. So great day for him. 4 tutties. He gets my game ball.
Yeah, he had that crazy streak of multiple game touchdowns. It wasn't crazy. It was like 4 games with double-digit touchdowns. And then I started him last week, and he got 1 touchdown. And then now he gets 4 touchdowns. Fucking, it's for him. My game ball, I haven't given him one this whole season, and I think it's due for somebody being so consistent. Davante Adams had another game over 100 yards. Tell me if you have not heard that one before. And 2 touchdowns. And one of them was against PlayStation 2, which has been rested in peace because there's a PlayStation 4 now. And his name is some sort of Seahawk name. I forgot the name of this guy.
Tariq Woolen.
Tariq Woolen. That's PS4. And then there's also a PS5, but I don't know who that is yet. There's
Sauce Gardner.
There you go. That's the PS5. Okay. So PS2, rest in peace. Thank you for everything you did.
PS2's got the blue screen of death or whatever the hell that's called.
Davante Adams, right after scoring that touchdown, was like, what did he say? He said something like degrading, but also helpful. It was like, he said something where like, it was like constructive criticism, but like in an asshole way. And I loved it so much. I wanted to say it on the podcast, but I don't remember. He was just like, he's just not there. Something like that. He's like, he's not there yet. He's not there yet. It was like, like you're good, but like I'm the best. So Davante Adams, game ball goes to you.
My game ball goes to. This is also a guy I have not given a game ball to all year, and I'm happy to
because he hasn't deserved a game ball all year.
wholesome moment. Yeah. Like, can we do this in like slow motion and then make it black and white?
I'll get a lot of effects and black and yellow. So I'll put like I'll show
them.
Put your beanie on.
Add some tears.
I wish I had my beanie around here, but it goes to running back of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Najee Harris, with 20 carries. 90 yards on 20 carries, average of 4.5, and most importantly, 2 touchdowns. Najee Harris is back, ladies and gentlemen. If you started him,
it only took 3 months of football, but he's back.
But he's back. He's back, and he's ready to attack. And I am very excited to continue to start him on my fantasy league.
It was nice to see, man. I'm a Najee fan. I want him to do well.
Yeah, we all did. Let's be honest. Like we all were waiting for this.
We're all rooting for Najee, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna call the show with Travis moving forward. You're just Travis now. You know why? You know why it's show it's Travis now?
Oh, what?
Homer.
Because you're a big ass Homer.
Travis.
Mitch Trubisky is the future Patrick Mahomes. Don't worry about it. We still got Rudolph. Rudolph's so good, guys. You guys have no idea what you're talking about.
Hey, if we just stop the Bills offense, we have a chance. We have a chance.
I'm just here to give analysis of how they're gonna win the game. Whether or not they go out and win the game, I can't control the weather.
You can't control the fact that they can't execute on your pristine game plan. Like, that's not your fault.
Rudolph, just be Mahomes. Just be Mahomes.
No, it's a great game ball. Great game ball. Much deserved. Happy for Najee. Let's end the episode real quick. 3 games on tap for Thanksgiving in 2 days. Let's preview those real quickly. First game on the board, the Bills and the Lions. Buffalo playing in Detroit for the second consecutive week. Buffalo favored by 9.5 points, over under 54 points. I mean, it's the Detroit Lions, right? What we say about them still holds true. But like you said, all it takes is, it's the NFL. So you're obviously starting everybody on the Buffalo side with confidence. I'm probably starting Buffalo defense, just knowing that it's the Detroit Lions. Because, again, could the Detroit Lions put up a great football game like they did against the Giants last week? Possible. Absolutely possible. But what does the probability tell me? It tells me that the Buffalo Bills should get back to Buffalo Bills ways. So I'm starting all the Buffalo Bills players. Gabe Davis, take that back. I would start Josh Allen, start Devin Singletary. I'll start Diggs, probably start Dawson Knox. Gabe Davis, you could start, but there could be a situation where
this is the game I'm starting Gabe Davis.
I just feel like there could be a world where they just don't even need Gabe Davis. But
they do, though. It's not like he's some gimmick thing. He gets more targets than Diggs lately. You know what I mean? Like, they use him.
Yeah. But I just don't like what his targets are, because his targets are always like home run or nothing, right? So it's like a deep bomb. If it's overthrown, that's his target and he gets nothing. But you're right. I mean, again, it's the Detroit Lions and it's Thanksgiving. You're watching football. You're eating a lot of shit. Start everybody. You don't want to bench anybody on like the happiest day eating a bunch of great food watching football. So yeah, start everybody on Buffalo. On the Lions side, start Jamal Williams and start Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jameson Williams is officially off of the IR, so I think they have a window to activate him. So he's an exciting, intriguing prospect that you could take a flyer on your bench and wait for him to come back. But other than that, Bills at the Lions, I'm expecting Buffalo to handle business here. Anything you guys are watching out for in this specific matchup?
Hey, man. The Lions got some heart, man. They're just coming off a win. Upset alert. I don't know. Thanksgiving, Dan Campbell, you don't want to write him off just quite yet.
Yeah. The reason I do agree with that is Dan Campbell seems like a man that loves his turkey, and you know how they hand out the big turkey to the winners and stuff. Like, I think that's all the incentive that man needs.
I don't see that. I don't see it happening. I called the last 2 games. The last 2 games I had the Lions winning both of those games, but this game I'm not so sure about that. I said like Josh Allen had to prove himself last game. They still pulled off a win somehow. But bro, if you lose to the Lions on Thanksgiving, where do you stand if you want to be one of the best quarterbacks of all time? Where does it put you? It puts you much, much lower. You're going to get made fun of for the next month, if not the rest of the season, if you lose this game. I don't see it happening. You just can't. They cannot afford to lose this game. 3 out of 4 losses within a month would be devastating for that Bills ego. And I can't. I'm trying to make sense of it. This just can't happen. For the love of the game, it just cannot happen.
I think if we see Josh Allen struggle this week again, that's 4 consecutive weeks, then you're going to start to be like, is that injury actually affecting him, right? Because everybody brushed off the injury like it was nothing because he chose to play.
Man, I don't know,
but
man.
We don't know. We have no idea the level of pain that guy's in, right? We just assume if he chose to play, then he's great.
But the reason I'm derailing his play is not because of the bad throws. It's because of the mental mistakes. He's making some serious mistakes, and that's got nothing to do with his elbow as far as like decision-making goes. But who knows? He may be limited on the type of throws he makes or whatever. But I don't know. I've always had a thing for Josh Allen not being who he really says he is, and he's kind of riding that for himself. And I really don't want to see that come down this obviously. Yeah. It has to be a little bit tougher than this.
I'm not on that yet. I think he's struggling, which is fine. Everybody struggled. Lamar struggled. Patrick Mahomes had like consecutive games last year or 2 years ago where he looked human all of a sudden, right? Because defense had figured him out. So I think there's a lot more at play here. But yeah, I'm with you. This isn't a game where I'm like the Lions can upset them. I just think the spread's really, really big. So there's a chance the Lions could backdoor cover the spread.
Okay.
Giants Cowboys divisional matchup. One team 7. I think both teams actually 7-3 currently. Dallas favored by 9 points against the Giants. Over under 44.5 are the books reading too much into the Giants' loss against Detroit, because 9 points in a divisional game against a team that actually plays good defense seems a little high to me. I don't really know what you guys make of this. Obviously, there's nobody in this game that you wouldn't have started in a normal game that you're not going to start. Saquon started. You're going to start Zeke. You're going to start Pollard. You're going to start Dak. You're probably going to, I don't know, Shovit, are you starting Dalton Schultz?
Yeah, I'm definitely starting Don Schultz. So I'm starting Don Schultz every single week. I mean, I haven't seen anything to not warrant a start, especially with how explosive this offense is. I mean, he may not get into the touchdown, but he's a favorite target for Dak Prescott nonetheless.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb has been hit or miss, but there's no world where you can't start CeeDee Lamb. So you're starting all the usual suspects. And, maybe if you're desperate, Darius Slayton, we talked about him. There's nobody else to catch passes on that side.
Yeah.
So if Dallas is going to go up, if they're going to pressure the Giants like they pressured the Vikings last week, then the Giants are going to have to throw at some point. And it can't just be dump offs to Breida and Saquon and tight end passes to like their backup Bellinger, right? It has to go to a receiver at some point. So Slayton can be the biggest benefactor here just out of sheer necessity. So if you're desperate, you could start Darius Slayton. Cowboys defense, great play in my opinion. Just again, that pass rush is so good that right now there's no reason you're not starting that defense. But I think the Giants +9 is what I would lean. I think this game is going to be tighter than a 10-point spread.
I hope so, man. I hope so, because I cannot live with what just happened and just ride that Cowboys high for that long. I don't believe in juggernauts. I believe in equality, even when it comes to football teams. And I think things should even out for the Cowboys. I'm just really afraid because I have not been a believer in the Giants through this whole process. The way they play is just so greedy and run first. And I can't be sold. I can't be sold. I'm still not sold. But if they pull out this win, then I have I got no option but to be sold.
Yeah, I agree. I'm right there with you. They haven't really beat a very respectable opponent yet, and the way they're winning is not, the greatest way and method. But again, people probably say that about the Vikings too, right? Looking from the outside in.
I say about the Vikings.
Yeah. So, again, it's the NFL. It's hard to come up with victories. We sat here literally a year ago, like, why is Minnesota losing every close game? Well, this year they're winning every close game. So wins matter in the NFL. It doesn't matter how you get them. That should be a good divisional game. Speaking of the Vikings, they headlined the night game on Thanksgiving. They're hosting the New England Patriots, and that amazing defense favored by 2.5 points at home, over under 42.5. Vikings looking to bounce back after that abysmal performance against the Cowboys. The fear is they're still not going to have their left tackle. So Matthew Judon, who is another amazing pass rusher, is going to have a field day. So I'm hoping it is a short week, but I'm hoping we found a way to adjust. Either Hawkinson, Cook, get some extra guys on the outside to chip, because Kirk Cousins can't be pressured at that high of a rate and us expect to do anything at all. Anything at all.
Nothing. They got to eliminate we got to start doing some shotguns. I don't know why we don't. It's not a part of our game plan because we do a lot of running, and the play action is developed better out of the shotgun or under the center. But there needs to be some plays developed where we limit the time between the snap and the defender getting to the quarterback. That needs to be limited as much as possible. So that equals get the ball quicker to the quarterback, have the quarterback ready to throw the ball to quicker receivers and quicker routes.
A lot of quickness. We need a lot of quickness in this game to have it. Yeah, it's just a lot of quick attacks. A lot of rat-a-tat. So that's what I'm looking for. You guys got any last-minute words about the Thursday night football or the Thanksgiving slate of football?
Yeah, it's a primetime game, so God bless our team.
Oh, God. No. Oh, God. Another primetime loss, and then it's just like, oh, God, here come the memes. Okay, that is it. Real quick, before we end the episode, I just want to do our weekly, probably just because I want to talk about my team, do our weekly what's going on in your other league, because I know we all have really, really formidable teams in our other leagues that we are hoping all three of us should be able to come out victorious. I'll run through mine with you guys real quick. I played against a guy who dropped 139.34 fantasy points against me, scored the most points in the league, but my team casually won 59.06. No big deal. Jalen Hurts, 24 points. Derrick Henry, 24. Saquon, 4.5. But who cares when you have the rest of your team to carry you? That's what having a consistent force is, right, Shashot? Devontae Adams, 29.6. DeAndre Hopkins, 13.6. Pat Freiermuth, 11.9. Tony Pollard, 33.9 points. San Francisco defense 10, and Justin Tucker 7. That's 159 points for my league. I won again. I am officially 9-2, and I have over 150 more points scored than the next highest guy. So I'm sitting pretty in that league. What about you guys?
Yeah, so I was playing against a person that scored 171 points, and wow. I unfortunately lost. I'm 7-3 in this league. But get this, okay? So my total points for this league is 1,730.
Jesus.
The next closest is 1,398. So
wow.
I'm sitting pretty. But no, I had bad performances by Saquon Barkley. Dameon Pierce didn't show up either. Justin Jefferson didn't show up. All those guys.
Oh wow, you had that whole team?
Yeah. So Barkley, Pierce, Jefferson. I also have Kelsey, who did really who did well. Olave did well. St. Brown did well. But and I started Cincinnati defense, and I told you guys this in the beginning of the game. I was like, Cincinnati's defense is gonna break some streamers' hearts, and I was one of those streamers, and my heart was broken as well. I didn't take my own advice, but I didn't have any options either. But I think my team is solid. I think moving forward, I'm number one, so I should be fine with Barkley, Pierce, Brown, Olave, Kelsey, Jefferson, Stevenson, Carlton, and Fields.
Who's your quarterback there? Fields.
Yeah.
Nice. So today is the first. Well, this week is the first week I'm in the playoffs in all three of my leagues so far this year. So I've been crawling my way up in our league, but the other leagues I'm just chilling up there, just waiting for people to talk shit, but nobody talks shit because they know better. But anyways, final score in my other league where I could have potentially been dethroned was 104 to 103. And I was playing against Hopkins, right? The guy only had Hopkins left, and I don't have Hopkins in that league. So I was up by 13, and he had Hopkins, and Hopkins scored 13, but the decimal points were in my favor, and I took the dub there. And he has not been able to sleep, sending me statistics about how rare this situation is every single day since Sunday. So that just makes me happy.
Good shit, man. It's always so nice being on the winning end of that.
It rarely does, but it happens sometimes.
That week that I lost by a yard, man, it was the worst. It literally, like, there's so many situations. Like, the fact that I could have started a guy who had 3.4 points as opposed to 3.3 and tied is just mind-boggling. Like, you can't sleep. But that's fantasy.
That is the world of fantasy football, and that's all we have for you guys. Long episode, a lot to talk about. We're excited. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of The Only Playbook. Follow us on all of our social medias, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, @OnlyPlaybook. If you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening from just about any podcast platform possible. So thank you guys so much for all the support. Have a great week. We will be back probably Friday and have a lot to talk about as there is 3 football games on Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm Sweet Car. That's your show. That's Shove It. We're The Only Playbook.